Are you looking for a new obscure deck to take the meta by storm? Or maybe you're having a little trouble with aggro and you want a new strategy to combat that? What's up, guys? KTOD Maddie here, hitting you with something I think is very appropriate for the end of summer, and that is the Block Party. What is the Block Party, you might ask? That is Hero Boba Green, Blue Base, Dagobah, am I right? We're going Sentinels, baby. We're going Restore. We are going to play the ground and air game. I think those two colors have a significant amount of very valuable, efficient units that have Sentinel, and we can use Boba's leader ability to trade them up. Boba flips and becomes an anthem for all our guys, and we're able to pressure our opponent. I've been playing this deck a bit, and it has some serious grind to it. And then in the late game, we go into some of the great blue and green cards. If you've been following me along, you know that I love blue-green villain, but I also love blue-green hero, and I've been trying to play a lot of Luke, and I haven't been able to get him where I want, although he's been doing better, so check those results out. But I had a shower idea of this deck, and I put it to the test, and I'm very impressed so far, so I want to get into it and share it with you. Here we go. Booyah. All right, so the Block Party, the KTOD Block Party, end of summer, we got to celebrate. What do I got for you? Like I said, I got Sentinels, I got Restore. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is Boba Leader. I say this a lot in my deck building videos, but one thing that I do is I look at my leaders and I look at how easy they are to build around and what they contribute to my deck. So Boba Leader, I think, is very underrated, and what he's doing is he's giving all of my cards an extra little bonus, and that bonus is they're saying target unit gets, this is editing Maddie, +1/+0, I'm a doofus at the end of the phase. That's a pretty good little bump if you look at it. Every unit that I have is able to buff somebody up. So you're giving every single card in the game that ability, which is really cool because over the course of the game, you're going to find that your units can trade better, and they're also going to be able to pressure your opponent more. Very common play is a turn 1 Restore arc that then gets buffed up and is hitting for 3. A 3/3 in the skies against, cards like Green Squadron A-Wing, or even just trading out with, red 3, right? That's such a huge boon for you. And because you have so many 3-cost Sentinels and you have an ability to pick whether you want to gum up the ground or the air, following that up with cards like Bright Hope, again, to just gum. It's very hard for them to get through that, and now it's a 3/6. So just pulling back a second, like what you want to happen is you want to be able to have initiative, and I think you can do that fairly easily with this deck with all the Sentinels. It's like a set it and forget it strategy, but you're able to play a Sentinel and then give them the buff, and now they're going to trade better than they did before. Bright Hope is now going to trade with like every single relevant ship pretty much in the early game because you're going to play it and you're going to give it 3 attack. Echo Base Defender, while he's got a small booty, we won't hold that against him. He can turn into 5 attack, and that can be really scary for a lot of cards. Baze can come in at a 3/5. That's actually pretty relevant when you're talking about the grit angle. And then the All-Star I found is Modded Cohort, not a Sentinel, but invited to the Block Party anyway, and that's because with Ambush, it's going to hit for 5. That's taken out Sabine unit, that's taken out Kanan's, that's taken out a cheated out Luke. He's going to have, he's 6'7", he turns into a 6'5", you just take him right out. So there's a lot of applications for that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is your 4 attack guys now becoming 5 attack, and that's Vigilant Honor Guards and Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's super important against cunning decks where usually you're curving out and getting blown out by cunning. I wanted an extra card on that, an extra card to play in that 5-6 resource turn for Sentinel, and so I elected to go with the Vigis to just kind of bolster Obi-Wan Kenobi a little bit. It's also really good with Ewing and reinforcement of building different 5-2s, and as you'll see, there's a lot of 4-3 combinations, which is why Baze is in there as a 2. I'd say Baze is probably the bubble card that I have the most. I think he's still really strong, but he's kind of sitting on that could be replaced. So as you test with the deck, let me know if Baze makes the final cut for you or if you've opted into something else. Timely is in there for one of the big things is Riken, but also later in the game. Timelying Riken gets a double trigger and can be an insane amount of value. But I mean, if you're able to timely a Luke, that's pretty baller as well. Traditional ramp package, Spark of Hope is a 2 of because it's a little less reliable, but I think in this deck with all the Sentinels, you can dictate when you want to trade with it, and it's really good. This is the cool thing is like blue-green has so much going on, and really I found that with these 6-cost leaders, although I think in the game right now they're in a little bit of trouble in terms of how much value they provide for 6 resources. I think it's pretty clear that the 4 and 5 resource and then some of the other higher resource leaders are pretty cost effective in terms of how much value they provide. Everyone knows that I like Kira. I mean, think of how much value she gives you. But anyway, this is about Boba. So what I found with these leaders is cheating them out a turn earlier is really important and really leading into their units, their leader side. So I loved Luke. One issue I had with Luke is the shield wasn't always something that you could accomplish. It cost resources. It wasn't easier to land. This just happens. And so in my hierarchy of leaders, like one of the things I look for are free action or free abilities that don't require an action, definitely don't require resources. And I think that Boba is huge here. I know a lot of people like leaning into, say, ambush with him, or hey, there could be a saboteur angle. Someone let me know if you could make Saboteur Boba work. But here I think that Sentinel is just so strong. I found at Gen Con that decks that were surprising me and doing well were decks that were able to wall off and kind of go late. And I think this deck has a lot of capacity to do that. Home 1 and U-Wing Reinforcement are a ton of value for what they are. And Luke, I think, is still one of the best units in the game. Now, I'd love to see this deck grow, and maybe in set 3 we see some more capital rebel ships and really let this, or hero ships, sorry, and really let this strategy take off. But I think here with tech and with the late game grind, I think you can really outpace an opponent on card advantage. All right, y'all, editing Maddie back again. Just wanted to hit a couple more points about this deck. One, because of the leader side of Boba Fett being a trigger, you can keep initiative more often than Luke, who I was talking about I like to build with. And the importance of that is with Luke, you always had to punt initiative to put a shield, which means you would take more damage on your next turn. Here, because of the Sentinels, you kind of get to block that and you get to pump people. The other thing I wanted to talk about was in a given game, especially when you're playing these mid-range type decks, you're going to have to identify if you need to be the aggressor, the beatdown, or if you have to be the control, right? Obviously, the way this is built, it's built to go to the late game. However, you might find you're against Palpatine or, Kira, who has more things going on in the late game. As much as we love Home 1, it gets eaten by Devastator, so you got to be careful. So you can actually go aggressive, and the cool thing is you can play Sentinels to protect your early drop units, pumping them and attacking. So you can lead Battlefield Marine into a Sentinel like Village People, Protectors, shout out to the Village People, or Echo Base Defender, swing in for 4, rinse and repeat that. So that's a cool way that you can switch gears. Against some of these Kira decks, they've been a little space light and rely on removal, so you can get a good Restore Arc beatdown going on, and then just trying to make sure that they don't have a good board for a flip, and then you want to save your removal for their Kira or something that would enable them to get a nice barrage off. And from there, you just want to play at as close to parity as you can, and then drop a tech. What else did I want to tell you about this deck? Oh, there are a few bubble cards I mentioned, like Vigilant Honor Guards, like Bays. Feel free to make it your own, like I say, with any deck, because you have Ewing reinforcements. You can be a little toolboxy with it, and the utility of the Boba Fett pump and keyworded cards. So I invite you to take those extra bubble slots that you see and change things up, try it, get to know the deck, and make it your own. If you find some cool one-ofs or two-ofs that you change, please let me know. And that's really all I wanted to say at this time. And now we'll go into the sideboard. Editing Maddie out. All right, and I want to talk to you about my preliminary sideboard with this deck. Even though this deck can grind into the late game, I am still a little worried about control. So I've just tried to bolster that late game package with another home one and another U-Wing. I also have Chewie in there, and I've also added Chewbacca. Now, while his smuggle cost isn't great, I still think for 8 he can come in and be a real thorn in the side, finish off a high-costed leader, or sorry, it could finish off a big unit that's pretty pesky at 8. So even though his smuggle would be 11, and that would be kind of crazy, although not impossible, I still think he can provide some value in the late game, so I wanted to add him in there. This is a bit of experimental. I wanted to bring this to you kind of earlier in the playtesting process, because I'm really excited about it. I think it's really fun. I think it's locals ready, and then we can tweak it and find the right meta to employ it as one of our silver bullet or obscure lists. Given the rise of Luke and some of the meta, I think this could also do the same thing. Rival's Fall is because I think this color scheme has a problem with buffed up leaders, and I think that we might see some more Boba armor. So Rival's Fall to kind of counter that play that would happen on 6, line those right up. That's an easy one. And then even though I think we should be pretty good against aggro, there's some late game stuff that I think we can take out and reinforce our strategy with cards like Vigilance and Redemption. And I want to see if Vigilance could be a key to win some attrition wars later in the game with the mill. More on that. So if you see a card that you think could be in the sideboard and could add to the strategy, I'd love to hear about it. But yeah, that's the sideboard. All right, y'all, so that is the block party. That's the KTOD Maddie block party celebrating the end of summer. We're blocking, we're attacking, we're doing it all with Boba Fett. I think he's a great call for that. Now, after you test this deck, hit me in the comments. Let me know how it's going for you. If you make any changes or cards that you think should be in there, I'd love to hear about it. I think this is going to be a rewarding deck to play and can get you some wins, as people aren't going to be really expecting it. I think it's a bit under the radar, and it's still playing a lot of really good cards.